Welcome to No Password Required, a monthly conversation that introduces you to some of the top talent in the world of cybersecurity.
Hello and welcome to No Password Required, a podcast dedicated to exploring the minds and personalities that make up the field of cybersecurity. I'm your host, Ernie Ferraresso, and with me, as always, is Jack Clabby, cybersecurity attorney at Carlton Fields, PA in Tampa. On the podcast today, we'll chat with Melissa Dark, the founder of Dark Enterprises, a nonprofit dedicated to developing, supporting, and stewarding cybersecurity education at the secondary level. Dr. Dark has worked in cybersecurity education for over 20 years, including several at Purdue University. Melissa, we look forward to a great conversation. But first, hello to my co-host, Jack Clabby. Jack, good day to you, sir.
Oh, good day to you, Ernie. It is officially springtime in the great state of Florida, so looking forward to getting outside and looking at my phone on a park bench.
You know what? I think that's what most of us like to do. Because I think we did have spring. I guess it was last Tuesday, and we're moving back into back to warm and humid times. But hey, such is life in Florida.
I was listening to podcasts and doing a little yard work, and I had a whole bunch of yard stuff and palm tree leaves. And I had earbuds in, not super fancy ones, but ones I like. And one slipped out of my ear and fell into this muck. And I maybe did 20 minutes of yard work and then another 30 minutes of looking for my earbud in this. I could not find it. So
it's gone.
Now I've got one earbud. So I've been a more attentive listener as of late with only one earbud.
Only one earbud.
And I think it's going to eventually stop working because it won't pair with the other one. So that never used to happen with the fancy over-ear ones I had before.
That problem.
So
yeah.
I'm getting there. One story that we should talk about for a little bit is in Florida. There's all sorts of fun crimes and alleged crimes that we talk about involving alligators and whatnot. But there was some crypto news, some alleged crypto theft recently in the news. So the local Fox channel reported on this in Clearwater that there was an arrest made of a guy in Pinellas Park, which is Clearwater area, Florida, who was accused of stealing almost $600,000 of cryptocurrency. He was a cybersecurity analyst who was alleged, and this is all alleged, so innocent to proven guilty in our system, but he was working in the home office, and the allegation is that he's a certified ethical hacker and a certified cybersecurity analyst, and he is working at this home office setup, and the allegation is that he took the hardware wallet that contained cryptocurrency private keys, I guess, and took it with him when he left the home. He had access to it allegedly because of the work he was doing there. And then suddenly the cryptocurrency that was, the client in the client's possession shows up in wallets that are in his possession. And so he was arrested, and according to the public reporting is that the blockchain analysis, saw that the crypto went to places that he controlled and that he had taken control of the hardware wallet. So that's the allegation. So he was arrested on, I think, 2 counts, one grand theft, and the other is offenses against computer users. And looking at, again, according to the public reporting, maximum terms of 30 years in prison. So pretty serious stuff. I mean, really, it's 2 alleged crimes. Crime 1 is taking the hardware, this little dongle that contains the private keys. Yeah. And then the second crime is accessing that hardware wallet and then going into wherever the crypto is being held and moving it. So you have 2 separate crimes: stealing $100,
hardware.
Yeah, and then the other crime is the $600,000 worth of crypto. They'll never know, too. That's the other piece of it. If this happened the way the cops say it did, what was the plan to get away with it?
Yeah, exactly. Well, he would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for those, meddling kids.
That's right. Those kids in their blockchains being
exactly
specifically say where everything went to an nth degree of.
Exactly. Well, I think there's a couple of things that are really interesting about it. Well, first though, maybe you can help me. So 30 years in prison, is that because, if you just look at it, is that because of the amount of money that's associated with that? Because like I said, he took something like could be as big as your AirPods case.
Yeah.
Within itself is no value. But then the crimes against computer, is it because it was $600,000?
Well, this is an old trick from the police beat. And you see it because a lot of these grand larceny statutes have very high maximum penalties. Uh-huh. Because it also is, maybe the same thing you would charge if someone stole $1 billion.
Yeah.
Versus $600,000 of the crypto, which is what's alleged here. And so you do have this all-purpose statute, but in reality, I don't believe that the sentence would be anywhere near 30 years.
Yeah, they're going to throw this guy in the clink for
a lot less. And again, it's all allegations. It may not be the case, but you think about it, right? You took this Trezor, most of these hardware wallets. I think this was a Trezor one, according to the news article. They're worth about $100. And so you could say, okay, that's one alleged crime, is taking the thing that's worth $100. Yeah. The other crime then is accessing. What you're really doing is you're taking password or private keys that don't belong to you.
Yeah.
And you're going to another website where the crypto is actually kept, and you're pretending to be that person, and you're creating a transaction that ultimately it's the transfer later of the money or of the funds that have an equivalent dollar value. That's the real sort of crime there. And so that's where you'd have.
And I think one of the things that's really, it's fascinating to see the evolution of all this, because I can remember when crypto kind of started taking off, and there was this big, it's all going to be all this dark money, and you're not going to be able to track it. And it's going to be, and now it's turning out that it appears this is actually easier to track than currency money. Because the actual technology that's behind it that supposedly made it, quote, anonymous and mysterious, is actually the whole point of it makes it so that you can track it.
That's right. Yeah. The thing that makes it useful is the thing that then once you figure out how to get into these wallets downstream, there was no public reporting on whether the money was recovered. I guess they can sort of, maybe they make a deal or they offer a deal or something, and the money needs to get returned. But it's getting access to that wall, unless the cops got access to whatever password, whatever private keys are controlling those ultimate ending Bitcoin or whatever crypto wallets. Because that's the other piece of it, is if all this money ends up in places and people lose their private keys to it.
Yeah.
Then you have all this, if you believe that crypto has value, then at the end of it, you have all this stuff that's just lost. Like it's like cash that gets left behind. It's like when you put $100 in your back pocket, Ernie, when you're out with your buddies, because you want to have a way of getting home if things get crazy. This is you, not me. This is you. I'm picking up. And you've got it in your back pocket, and you just say, and then you forget you have it, and a couple of months later, you're putting your party pants on again to go out there, and you say, whoa, a couple of rounds on the big guy here, paying for the night out. But it's found money. It is weird. So if it has X amount of value, like if you think of crypto as having X amount of value in any, because we know how many tokens are issued, if a certain, 2% of those are going to be lost, that raises everybody else's value. So it doesn't really create a lot of incentive to make a smooth recovery system.
Well, yeah. So is this like, are we going to start having, the Bitcoin treasure hunters where they like looking for lost shipwrecks, but they're looking for lost unrecovered wallets and such. That's
a great business, Ernie. Somebody should start that business when the
Indiana Jones Raiders of the Lost crypto wallet.
It's also don't neglect physical security. So I took a couple months ago. I took an iPad, I think. So one of our kids had damaged an iPad in some capacity, and I brought it in to be repaired to a place that had been recommended to me, but was not a name brand iPad repair shop. And so I walk in, and the guy has a number of open boxed iPads out there for sale. And the spider senses were tingling. And I'm there with like a 7-year-old. It's me and a 7-year-old, and we're in this place. And I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to at least see what the transaction is. And he says, it'll be $100 for me to fix the broken screen on this iPad. And I said, okay, well, how does the transaction work? And he goes, well, you give me your password to access your iPad. We then And I was like, that's step one. Why don't you just replace the screen?
Yeah,
He says,
why do you need to have the data?
I need the password because I need to access it at the end and make sure it's all working. And I was like, wouldn't you just plug it in? It'll charge. So we had something of a back and forth here, and I ended up not going with that establishment. But I would like to engage with one of our listeners to see, like, is that a legitimate, if you were let's just hypothetically say you were a legitimate repairer of iPads, just to fix the screen, a crack in the screen, do you need the password to the device? Not the Apple ID, but the password to the device. And the answer might be yes. And I might have just, I might not have understood the transaction, but the neglecting
that seems a little strange.
It does.
I don't, yeah.
I had some questions, but at the same time, he said, look, if you don't want to pay the $100 to fix it, you can buy one of these opened Apple iPads that I have here in this. I was like, oh yeah. And how did you acquire these?
All I can tell you, this nice watch here too.
That's right. But don't neglect physical security. We talk about it all the time, but that's, let's say the facts are as the police said they are. We don't know that that's the case, but let's say it's true. You invite someone to come into your home to work on your computers and to, provide some security. This is the security person you've let into your house. And so at some point you have to have some degree of trust. But it's physical security. You could have the most, like these, these hardware wallets for keeping your private crypto key. That's fairly state of the art. I mean, that's air gapped from your computer. It's not a soft key. It's not a warm key, whatever they call it, where it's residing in a physical application. It is a separate device that is entirely not attached to your family's network. So if you're going to have a lot of money in crypto, this is not a bad way to go security wise. But then you can't just leave it out where people can get access to it. And then I don't know how the password works on that device, but somehow the allegation is that the password would have been recovered here. So physical security is still important. And if you're somebody who writes down your passwords, don't leave them right by your computer, Ernie, right?
I would never do that.
Isn't it like every picture that's ever taken of Mark Zuckerberg? The idea is like people always scrutinize they zoom in on it to see if he's written his password down.
It's probably, exactly, the sticky right there on it. Oh,
but celebrities, I think there have been celebrity examples whose Twitters have been compromised because they have done something like that, where they've just left visible their. We're going to talk in a few minutes with Dr. Dark about some of the work she's doing in the high school space for curriculum development. But that's another thing. A lot of education, the educational systems like a school district or an individual school might buy access to software and then with student username and logins and then not change the default login. Yeah. So it's going to be a student last default. Name and grade, admin default. And that's, I don't know what you want to get in there and mess with the kids' grades, I guess, but it would be more. I don't know. So, but you have a lot of physical security, but with this crypto stuff too, in particular, it's a lot of. I mean, it's money. It's like having a safe with having. As a guy from New Jersey, I've been inside some walk-in safes where people keep. That's a feature
$600,000. That's a big. That's like a wheelbarrow full of cash.
Yes.
And if you had 20s. You're going to lug a 500-pound safe, and now you can have an unlimited amount of money that you can carry around in something as big as your iPhone, and the actual key is probably something as big as an earbud, and people are worried about losing that. That just seems like what happened? Oh, I dropped my and it's by the way, it's gone, and you can't get it back.
Whatever happened to the old days of just gold bars buried in end zones of high school football fields. Just keep it the way that our grandfathers kept their money.
That's right. The mattress, just put it in their coffee cans.
But it's some folk. Look, to be fair to the crypto industry, I mean, I think there's growing pains with any sort of new currency. There aren't a lot of new currencies, but we've seen a whole lot of them in the past couple of years.
New things of value. I think that's
But I think it is no safer or not safer than cash. I think. But can be in certain circumstances a heck of a lot more traceable, Ernie, as you pointed out.
Yeah. And it'll be interesting when they, if they do tie this guy's sentence to the value of the the wallet, he better start praying that that crypto tanks. And well, it turns out he only stole $60, but
right. What's the day that I don't know the answer to that. Is it the day that we evaluated, the day of the crime, or is the day? That's a good question. I think.
Crypto takes off. $600 billion. Oh, I'm sorry, sir. We have to extend your sentence. What? What happened? Turns out to crypto.
It's something, but there was a lot of coverage of the lost crypto private keys is the really heartbreaking stuff. That's the one where everyone tried to do the right thing, or they bought crypto early on and forgot about it, and now they're trying to remember what who were they dating, what TV shows were they into,
exactly. What was that? What was the phone number that I can use for this password?
It's Bosco, right? Isn't it?
Bosco.
Bosco.
The code, man. Give me the code.
But I mean, it's the solution. It's if you use a software application password keeper, then it becomes about protecting the password to that device. And if you have an air-gapped token password keeper, which again is supposedly really one of the state-of-the-arts here for security, where do you keep it? And who knows the password to that? And what would happen if you passed away, right? Where's your digital will for all these things? So lots to think about if you are in the crypto community and you're thinking about keeping your stuff safe. There's risks, there's costs and benefits to the different methods by which you can keep your stuff based. And it was really good to see. I mean, again, innocent proven guilty, but it was really good to see the sort of Clearwater police taking on something kind of sophisticated and cool like this. So it was a cool headline to see, I think.
Yeah, that's one of the things I'll be interested to see as it kind of shakes out, is learning more about the investigative process that they went to track this down, because that is really remarkable. Here we have a local police department potentially doing some pretty sophisticated blockchain transaction analysis, which I would say even a year ago you wouldn't have seen any local departments even attempting to do any of this stuff. So that's if they're getting into that space, it's good for them. It's good to see that they can actually do something.
What do they say? That's what they asked Al Capone. Why do you rob banks? And he says,
that's right.
That's where the money is.
That's where the money is.
But it's good to see like the sort of major crime squads understanding that $600,000 of crypto is the same as $600,000 stolen from a safe. Still
exactly.
It's a value.
We're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to talk to our guest Melissa Dark about how her life in higher education led her to a new life in secondary education. Stick around.
Looking for more no password required content? Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn at No Password Pod.
Okay, welcome back. Our guest is Dr. Melissa Dark, a cybersecurity educator who has a passion for teaching the teachers. Melissa, welcome to No Password Required.
Well, thank you, Ernie. It's good to be here.
Well, we're really glad that you could spend some time with us this afternoon. We know that you are up in a cooler climate. So for those of us down here in Florida, I'd say we empathize, but we kind of don't.
Melissa, can you tell us a little bit about your current role at Dark Enterprises?
I can. It's a nonprofit that I founded. I founded it in 2015. I was doing it part-time while I was still a professor at Purdue. And then in 2019, I decided that maybe this is how I wanted to finish out my career. So I retired from Purdue. I'm full-time here. It's a small nonprofit. And so that means that I am the janitor. I'm the CFO. I'm the CEO. You get to do it all when you're small.
Head cook and bottle washer, correct?
Correct.
How did you maybe just walk us through your career? So how did you get where you are, Melissa?
Well, I come from a family of teachers.
Okay.
And so I was going to break the mold. And I became a college professor instead of a K-12 educator. Yeah. I specialized in curriculum and instruction, and I was at Purdue. I was partnered with people in engineering because Purdue's a huge engineering school. I was on a grant that was ending. I almost moved to a dream job in Michigan. at this big national center that did educational evaluation. Family illness kept me here. So I interview with Gene Spafford, who I consider to be one of the pioneers of cybersecurity. And he has a cybersecurity center at Purdue. This is 2000. And he hires me to work on cybersecurity education. At this point in time, he hired another woman. Her name was Judy. He said, Melissa, you're going to worry about educating anybody who's over the age of 18. And Judy, you're going to work on anybody who's under the age of 18. That was as much direct.
That's awesome.
I'm not sure who got the better deal, but
you get all the left-handed people, you get all the right-handed people.
Yeah, there was as much direction as we got. This is 2000. Like at that point in time, there were 7 universities in the country that were CAE schools, known for educating people in cybersecurity, Purdue being one of the first 7.
Yeah.
So it was the early days. So anyway, I took the job, knowing nothing about cybersecurity. And I just started getting busy, partnering with other universities, helping them grow their cybersecurity programs. I worked on faculty development. I had funding from NSF and then from NSA 2 different times to bring in college faculty. Because, back in the early days, they were doing exactly what they're doing in high school now. We're taking business professors or IT professors or computer science professors, computer engineering professors, and they were upskilling them to be cybersecurity professors.
And how is that?
Nobody could have a cybersecurity graduate degree because none existed yet.
Yeah. So on that approach, the upskilling of faculty members, how do you think that worked out? I guess that's where you got to start. You got to start somewhere.
Well, now people can get a PhD, a concentration in cybersecurity. We still don't have enough new faculty coming out of, to go into professorships, but you can get that PhD. At the time, I think it was the right thing for the right time, Ernie. We literally brought faculty to campus. They spent summer school. They spent 8 weeks with us. They took 11 credit hours in 8 weeks. They went back to school.
Yeah. I wonder if it's kind of like Rodney Dangerfield, right? There was going back to school.
I think sometimes they felt like that. I'm in touch with many of them to this day because it was a really immersive bonding experience. You had to bond together to survive. And then they went back to their home institutions and they started cybersecurity courses and minors and then majors, and they helped it grow at their institutions. So, they were like the seed corn.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can say that I'm in Indiana.
What was the profile of someone who would come in the early 2000s to a program like this? What animated or motivated them to pursue this?
So most of them were either CS or IT professors at their home institution. And for whatever reason, they were feeling the need to start a cybersecurity course, and they had heard about it. We just put it out on the wire, through ACM listservs and ASEE, stuff like that. And so they had heard about it, and then they would put together their application. And when they put together their application, they had to say why they were wanting to come. I mean, this was 2002, so I can't remember what they said in those letters why they wanted to come. But so I think it was the right thing at the right time. So real quick, how I got from there, which is the early 2000s, to a nonprofit, around 2015, I got asked to join 2 projects that were high school cybersecurity education. And it had been interesting. So almost all of the cybersecurity education started at the graduate level. And then we went through the era of it growing down to the bachelor's degree. About 2010, 11, 12, you really started to see it start at the associate's degree. So here we are in 2015, and I joined a project funded by NSF to weave more cybersecurity into that advanced placement computer science principles course, and then Gen Cyber.
The summer camp, the NSA summer camp program.
The summer camps. So at the time that happened, that I joined those two projects, I thought of them as being like a field trip into K-12 cybersecurity education. And so I got asked to do these two projects, and I thought, well, that'll be interesting.
Yeah.
You know, I'd done graduate, undergraduate, curriculum development, faculty development, instructional development, assessment work. I'd done everything. I just hadn't been in the K-12 space. So I joined these two projects. I think it's going to be a field trip. I'm going to go do these few projects. I'll come back on the bus. I'll be Professor Dart. And instead, you know, it was a fork in the road. Instead, I found I really got the bug. The projects kept growing in scope. I kept managing that growth by taking unpaid leaves of absence from Purdue. And finally, I thought, I don't know, maybe I'm going to take the ultimate, you know, leave of absence. And that's what I do.
What is it about that challenge, Melissa, for you that made that the right thing?
I'm a starter.
Okay.
I'm not a maintainer. I've always known that about myself. I like to start new things. I thought about leaving, you know, really, it was like 3 years ago, exactly this time that I was making the decision. And so I'm weighing everything. And I thought to myself, I might have 8 to 10 more years in my career.
Okay.
You know, I've got a lot of experience. I've got a lot of passion and know-how about what to do that I learned from helping grow cybersecurity across universities and then community colleges. And I thought if I could use that to help grow cybersecurity in K-12 at Purdue, which is not the central mission of Purdue University. Purdue is an R1.
Mm-hmm.
Their central mission is not growing K-12 cybersecurity education. And I thought, you know, if I decided to leave Purdue, I could do this 150% and not 15%.
Mm-hmm.
What is it? So there's one thing to say, Melissa, that, okay, you're going to work on curriculum design to add the cyber component to an existing AP curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's another to say, we're going to develop something for K to fifth graders. How are those challenges different? You know, those are two different audiences for where you're designing. How do you approach those problems?
So I think we just started the littlest, you know, just the edge of your little toe in the pond on middle school. Because one thing about what I'm focused on, I want to focus on cybersecurity education and cybersecurity literacy. I really am not so much focused on digital citizenship or cyber safety.
So cybersecurity literacy and digital the citizenship, what's the difference?
It's a great question. And I wish I could say, boom, here's exactly the answer in a nice, neat, you know, package for you. But what I'll tell you, my current thinking is I frequently see digital citizenship taught as like a set of behaviors. And as long as you do these X things, these 12 things, you're a good digital citizen. I think literacy is a little bit different. Usually when we think about making somebody literate, it's something that is a foundational skill that they understand something well enough that they carry it with them for life. It's not a set of terminal behaviors, you know? So I think you could teach a set of terminal behaviors as an on-ramp to literacy, but I think you could also just teach a set of terminal behaviors as a dead end, and it's not an on-ramp to anything.
It's almost like when they're teaching a foreign language, you can take the conversational version of it, and then there's the actual no kidding foreign language. And the conversational, you learn, you know, how to order off a menu rather than the other one is you can go to that country and actually survive and get along and understand and read their literature and know what it means. So yeah, I get that, because I think that's where there is a big difference in that. I think when you talked about the citizenship, there is a time and place for, this is how you got to do it, but it's building the thinking behind it so that you can understand, so that you can effectively navigate your way through, I'll call it complex cyber situations that we're all living in, because it's 21st century and you got something in there, but it's not just, well, I know I can't, I know I can't, I need to change my password. Well, understanding, well, what's the password do? What is that? How does that play into things? Understanding it, that's basically showing somebody that's who you are, and understanding that. So that's a little bit different. That I see where that difference applies. Yeah.
See, I'm making some progress.
Yeah, see, not just a hat rack here. I can actually you actually use them.
How is that in terms of developing the curriculum for the high school students? You have the literacy, which is applicable to everybody, right? Because we all are going to live with that. But then you have what would be the companion term for that, for technical competence, for folks who are going to go on to become, analysts and risk professionals and work in or around the cyber field? Is that competence, or what is that side of the coin?
Well, let's call it competence.
Okay.
For now. And really that's mostly where we've been.
Okay.
It has been in that space. The literacy piece is newer for us. And we are really trying to think about how you could introduce that in the middle school. So I mentioned earlier, I'm a starter. I like to start things. So we started a project called Teach Cyber a couple of years ago, which is the competency piece. It's instructional materials. It's teacher support. We use cyber range, a couple different cyber ranges for students to be able to work in a safe sandboxed environment.
Oh, wow.
But that's aimed at competency. Our newest project that we're dreaming up for the middle school is called Live Cyber. That's the literacy piece. Learn, investigate, value, and affect change. Live Cyber.
So are there other disciplines that you can draw on as parallels for the literacy? I mean, I was just thinking about, like high school, or not high school, middle school, science. You had little bits of chemistry here and there. But is there a similar way that you could apply that to cyber? Is it standalone, or is it
Ernie,
integrated into like
Ernie, we want to recruit you on our middle school team. Because we're just getting started and you're asking great questions. And I need to say, Live Cyber, the brains behind that acronym is not me. It's Sabrina Smiley, who's part of our team. But you are asking all the right questions. What can we learn from other fields to try to figure out how you build meaningful literacy? I think the middle school is the right space. To try to do that. I think if you build meaningful literacy in the middle school, hopefully you can do a lot of good for a lot of people, and then early introduce that subset of people who want to go on for the competency in high school.
There's been so much about, for even middle school students into high school, about coding and about coding literacy and about coding competence. And, everyone gets a little exposure to it now. And then there's unlocks in high school for, in public high schools throughout the country in terms of now being able to access either as part of a core curriculum or an enrichment coding. Is the cyber competence a part of that? Is it something separate? Are you teaching that ultimately will these curricula be addressing the same students? Where does it link in with what's happening with coding?
So I think that there's both an intellectual answer to that, and then I think that there's an institutional answer to that.
And never the twain shall meet.
Never the twain shall meet. That's
the same
right.
kids. It's the same kids.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They're going to have a job probably.
Kids, but it is the same kids, and there's definitely I don't think I see a lot of overlap between computer science and cybersecurity, but they're not fundamentally the same thing. Yeah. You would teach a lot of stuff in cybersecurity that you would not teach in computer science. Yeah. But I think that there is a body of knowledge that both share.
Okay.
I believe that. It gets a little tricky in high school computer science. This is the institutional stuff. It's not just high school, right? Like back at Purdue, we had a computer science department that was in one college. We had a computer engineering department that was in another college. We had a management information systems department that was in another college.
Yeah.
And then we had an IT department that was in, yes, a fourth college.
It made for very nice
sure that-
volleyball brackets, though, at the picnics.
Yeah,
There's just
Yeah,
two.
exactly.
There's always one winner.
Yeah,
Is it Carnegie Mellon that has just the I school?
I'm not sure.
I think
it sounds familiar.
Carnegie, IU Bloomington, and maybe Cornell. They said this is just nonsense.
Yeah.
And they merged them. But you see that same thing happening in high school. Computer science sometimes lives in math, sometimes it lives in computer science, sometimes it lives in CTE, sometimes it lives in business.
So what do you think drives that decision making around that? And then is
Human beings.
Yeah, is it more of
It's
the
like-
old school? Yeah.
I think of those lines. I live in Indiana. And I can get in my car today and I can drive an hour west and I can be in Illinois. Yeah. There's no real line that I cross, you guys. It's pretend. That's an invisible line.
What? That's crazy. We can't have that.
Yeah.
Quick, somebody draw a line. Get some paint.
That invisible line has all sorts of real implications.
Yeah.
But it's not a real line. That's kind of where we are, this conversation about computing and cybersecurity.
Yeah. It's an arbitrary line that was drawn for the sake of drawing a line. Yeah.
What do you think of programs like? I mean, I'm just fascinated that Melissa, that both you and Ernie you guys knew about the NSA summer camp. I had no idea that the NSA had a summer camp called Gen Cyber.
I was going to say, it sounds cooler than it is. It's not like you get together. It
sounds very cool. So let's just go ahead and
It does.
You're already up here. So even if it's slightly less cool than it sounds, there's a lot of room.
Yeah.
But that's like a lot
tough.
of it's done through enrichment. And so enrichment's only accessible to some kids. It's like a program like that. I'm imagining it's like Space Camp, but underground. And it might not be that, Ernie. Let's just pretend it is.
Did I tell you about the NSA bunker complex out in
But,
Hawaii? I told
but
you
is
about
that,
didn't I?
but Melissa, is that okay? Like, does it start with enrichment programs? You test them there for kids who are really motivated, and then you bring them into schools? Like, is that the journey that sometimes these curricula take? Or is that not a good thing? You don't want to test it one off.
I do think that a lot of cybersecurity has started as enrichment or also just called out of school time activities.
Okay.
OST.
Okay.
And part of that is not just because you want to test it before you bring it into the curriculum, but we have a crowded curriculum. K-12 schools have a crowded curriculum. They're already trying to teach a lot. We've got that same problem I was talking about 20 years ago in college. If a school wanted to teach a cybersecurity pathway, where is it going to hire a qualified teacher? Where do these teachers get the skills and the knowledge? They're not going to go, like, teacher colleges or education programs don't have cybersecurity education like they have math education or English education.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Melissa, thank you. We're going to take a short break now. When we return, Ernie will put you through the Lifestyle Polygraph. So please stay with us, everyone.
You're listening to the No Password Required podcast. We cover cybersecurity and a lot of other stuff.
Okay, everybody, welcome back. Melissa, as you may know, in the national security community, those that are entrusted with some of the greatest national security secrets have to undergo something that is known as the Lifestyle Polygraph. That is used to understand and determine their acceptability for high-level access to very sensitive information. On our show,
Fitness for duty.
that's right.
Yeah.
On our show, we subject our guests to something equally intrusive and ask very probing questions to get into your mind, to understand a little bit about what makes you tick and how you think. So that said, are you ready
I-
for the lifestyle polygraph?
No.
Well, that's okay because we already sent you the t-shirt. So I'm sorry, that's the cost of the t-shirt.
I gotcha.
All right, here we go. It's a series of 5 questions. We're going to start off, but here's question number 1. Question number 1. What is a topic that you wish you had a much deeper understanding of?
That's an easy one. Comparative religious history.
Comparative religious history.
Mhm.
Really?
Maybe an easy answer, but not an easy topic. Melissa.
That's right.
What interests you in that? Everything.
What is not to be interested in that? All of it. I was just talking to my team earlier today. We were talking about data visualization. So because I think comparative religious history would be like starting all over again. I'd have to go do a bachelor's degree and then a master's and then a PhD. Is probably unachievable in the time I got left. So maybe I could take a data visualization course. There's another topic I'd like to know more about.
Or maybe if you could visualize religious history, maybe combine the two. I don't know how you would do that. There's probably, we can throw some buzz phrases. There could be some machine learning involved in that.
But yeah, those are my 2: data visualization, comparative religious history.
I got, someone offered me a World Book Encyclopedia about 5 years ago, an old one they were going to get rid of it. It was from the mid 70s. And it was very cool. And when I looked at it, I was like, all right, we took a couple of the books that were associated with it. And one was called World Religions. And it was essentially a textbook. And it had 5 world religions. And I'm not going to say which ones are in there and which ones weren't, but it was pretty awesome to read this thing. And also to think about how dated a book, even from the mid 70s, is in comparative religion to today, and how these institutions, some have been with us for millennia, but how different they are even in the last 50 years. So I could see how it could absorb all time in study. You really could devote a huge amount of time.
I have a nice little book. I'm sure it's out of date now, but it's on religion in India. They're polytheistic and still not what some people call big box religion, so you still, it's anyway, at the time I read this book, which was about 10 years ago, local practices and customs were still much more common and accepted. But I'm sure it's changed a lot just in 10 years, because the big religions continue to, try to be bigger.
I wonder if there'll be a resurgence like we've seen with, with like Etsy and some of the, smaller stores, so to speak, the mom and pops taking on the Home Depots and the Walmarts. And I wonder if we're going to see that in the religion side of the house. Well, hey, Jack, maybe could be you. That could be you could become start your own.
I've always thought that I would like the job of being, but for the belief part, like, I think it would be really cool to be a pastor of a small community, because you're like the captain of a ship, sort of, but you're also the servant. You're like the highest ranked and the lowest ranked person, which I think is a cool. Whoever can do that job, I think, is someone really special, because they're both in charge, but also immediately at a moment's notice will go to a parishioner's house and take care of them at 3 a.m. So it's that calling is a special calling, not unlike being a cybersecurity attorney, Ernie.
Yeah, but exactly. Okay, here we go. Question number 2. Where is the best place to travel if your goal is to learn more about yourself?
For me, it's any place that there's woods.
If you had to pick a woods, rainforest, tropical hardwood hammock, coniferous alpine forest, all of the above?
All of the above.
Don't ask me why I know all these different.
One of the best, it's a temperate rainforest. One of the best rainforests I've ever been in my life was by Sitka, Alaska. which used to be the capital of Alaska when it was Russian territory.
Oh, wow.
But it is so thriving with life that there are rotted out tree stumps with new trees growing out of them. Is just like you get into this rainforest and you can just feel, the life, the heartbeat of the life. It was amazing.
All right. Okay, here we go. Number three. What's a positive life experience or a moment that you'd want to experience again? And you can't say being on this podcast, because we know that that's a life-changing moment for a lot of people. But
I went in 2016. I went with my youngest daughter, and there was another set of kids in a youth group. We went over to Zimbabwe on a mission trip. So I was staying with this family, and I wanted to cook dinner. And so they said, yes. We go to the grocery store. I get over to their house and I walk in the backyard, and they've got an outdoor cooking hut. And I think, oh no, oh crap, I don't know how to cook a dinner for everybody in a cooking hut, But I don't say anything, and I walk in the back door, and I'm really thankful because there's this small 2-burner stove. And so I just use the stove. I chicken out. I don't do the cooking. Okay. So they're so thankful for dinner. I agree to make dinner the next night. I still use the stove. So we leave that town. We go to the next town, and we're visiting an orphanage. And we get done, and I said, it would be really nice to make dinner. This is like becoming my assumed role on this trip, the cook.
Okay.
the cook.
And so I think it would be really nice to make dinner. And so I say to the guy who's running the trip, I'd like to offer to make dinner. He said, well, which house? Because an orphanage has like 10 different houses, each one with a house mother, and then about 8 to 10 kids. Yeah. And I said, well, I don't think I could pick a house. And he said, well, you're not going to cook for the whole orphanage, are you? And I said, well, could we maybe? So I recruit all of my daughter and all of the other young kids to be sous chef. And we decide, yes, we're going to do this. We're going to cook for the whole group. Yeah. So it literally becomes going out and buying the live chickens still, and then going to the market and buying the groceries. It's going to be chicken and noodles and deviled eggs.
That's the universal hors d'oeuvre right there.
Which they have never had. I could have had 5 times as many deviled eggs and it would not have been enough.
Oh, wow. Introducing deviled eggs to the people of Zimbabwe.
Yes. And so I get to the orphanage that day, and I'm talking to Grace, who is the head mother of all of them. And I tell her I've got everything and I'm ready to start cooking. And she says, all right. And I said, well, just show me the kitchen. And she said, just one problem. I said, what's that? She says, the electricity's out.
Oh my goodness.
Hopefully it's a gas stove.
And I said, really? What am I going to do? And she says, well, you're going to have to use the cooking hut.
Oh, wow.
Right. So now here I am, 2 chicken to cook for 10 people in the cooking hut, but I'm going to cook for about 104 cooking hut. And it was absolutely magical. I would turn and I would say to Grace, okay, I think I'm going to need a really big pot to put all these chickens in full of water. And like 10 minutes later, here would come a woman with a pot on her head full of water, just out of nowhere. So this is just how the afternoon went. And, so you start cooking. It was way too hot. It turned into like thick soup. The noodles completely.
So I don't think it mattered though.
Yeah, and the electricity's still out.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's turning dark and we're finally ready to eat. Somebody pulls up their car. They shine headlights. That's the only light we have in addition to the fire from the cooking hut. Turns on the music, leaves the radio going in the truck. So we got music, we got lights, we got food. And I said, okay, I think we're ready. And so they bring them in ages from the littlest up. The oldest people eat last. And by the time all was said and done, the entire cooking hut was full of people sitting on the floor, on the sides of the half wall, eating and talking, and the lights were going and the music was playing. And it was a pretty awesome day.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I would relive that day. I would also relive the day each one of my kids were born.
Yeah, I don't know how to top that because that's a great story. And but we have another. We must continue to press on. And here it is. Question number 4: is it possible to be successful and unhappy?
Probably depends on how you define success. If contentment is part of your equation for success, then no. But if like having all of the money in the world and I don't care how content I am is your equation for success, then sure.
Yeah. It's a deep philosophical question, I guess we have to. And this is where Jack would come in because he'd break out. When we say successful, according to so-and-so v such and such, success was defined by.
I was just talking to it. If, but one of my other colleagues that I work with, she says she found a new philosopher, mediocrities.
Mediocrities, yes.
That's awesome.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, the Stoic.
Good enough.
The Stoics are having a revival on TikTok, because it's a way of dealing with adversity as if it was a test or a charm. So that mediocrity is one that I think I like. My wife and I call that just doing a B+ job.
Yeah.
Not an A. It's not a C. It's a B+. Just do your best. Could we, could that children's birthday party have had more balloons? Sure could have. But you know what? We're not going for the A here.
That's right. We don't need it. Yeah.
Did you in your career in academics, did you see colleagues who had the balance right or see colleagues who had the balance wrong, who let time pass them by? I mean, I know it can be an all-consuming thing sometimes, and at a big, prominent university like Purdue, I'm sure you saw all kinds of the different careers.
Yeah, I did. I always think that the people I looked up to most somehow at least appeared to me to still really have their balance, and not just, there's the appearance of balance and then there's the sense that somebody's really balanced. Yeah. You can feel it from them.
Yeah, we always say there's a lot of folks who you might see in out and about who say that they're involved in their children's lives, and their kids are young and they don't have a car seat, a booster in their car. And you're like, where's the booster in your car? If you're involved, show me the booster. I want to go for a ride in the car and I want to see something in the car that indicates to me you have children, people.
This is the lifestyle polygraph. Right here.
That's right.
That's right. They're not confined to another automobile, but.
All right, here we go. Moving along. Number 5, the 5th and final question. Which would you say you are better at working with? A keyboard or power tools?
I really want to say power tools, but I'm not that good at them.
That's I think the majority of humanity is just not very, they really like having them. They like to use them, but they probably, listen, I can use this drill to cut things. That's fine.
I really am such an amateur. I love it though. But I'm such an amateur. I'm such a hack. Sometimes I walk around and I look at my baseboard. I did on my baseboard. I walk around and I look at my baseboard. And I go, man, I think, by the time it's hard. It's hard work. It's precision work. So then I start to get that I'm just not that good. So mediocrity takes over and I go, it's
not a square angle in this house. But that's okay.
Is there, do you do like a project like that, like a baseboard, given all the stuff you have going on? Do you do a baseboard project, block out a weekend and just do it? Or do you do a little bit over the course of weeks or months?
I haven't done a big house project for a while because I'm not a person who can spread it out.
Okay.
So I usually only take on projects when I know I can do them. I can't stand for stuff to sit undone.
What's some of the stuff that you've done, over time or in your history?
Like in this house that I'm in, I did. That's why I had to take all the baseboard up and put it all back down again, is because I redid the whole floor. I put down a baseboard.
God, listen, that's
what? Oh, wow. Okay.
Now, did you put the, hardwood in did you do the click lock, or did you have to do put the glue down and nail it? Or
so I have done in the house that I lived in before, we put down hardwood.
Wow.
And it was tongue and groove hardwood, unfinished. I was right. So you put the biscuits in the end.
Yeah.
You get the pneumatic nail gun, and but I didn't go quite that labor intensive where I'm at right now. I did a tongue and groove, really nice to install bamboo floor.
How do you, with all the things you've done, how did you learn to do this?
My dad was really handy.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So I learned most of it, from him.
Yeah. I've learned that if I do it myself, I have to buy the materials. I install them. Then I have to go buy the materials again and pay somebody else to do it, and take up the stuff I just put down. So sometimes I cut to the chase and just have somebody else come and do it.
I'm no good at electrical.
Well, you got to be careful with electrical. That's one of those things, Yeah, I'm like, what's it, Michael Keaton, 220, 225, whatever it takes. You don't want to mess with electricity because that can. Yeah, if you get that wrong, you can really hurt yourself, and you can probably set your house on fire if you're not careful. Yeah.
So keyboard, final answer, Ernie.
Keyboard it is. Keyboard it is.
I like watching somebody who's good at typing. I fancy myself a fairly good word processor and typer, but someone will show me like a keyboard shortcut, and I'm just like, wait a minute, what was that? Did you just do control backspace? And like, I have a capacity to be amazed by keyboard. I don't know. It goes with the professions.
But listen. So back to whatever the first question was, comparative religious history and data visualization. If this cybersecurity nonprofit doesn't work out, I might think about starting to flip houses, because then I could do more power tools.
Oh, wow.
There you go. There you go.
Plan A, B, C, D.
Well, with that, Melissa, that's fantastic. We'll be looking forward to you on the HG network, flipping houses with Dr. Dark. Thanks so much for joining us. If our listeners wanted to connect with you, how can our listeners connect with you? You have social media, or just shout out into the wilderness and you'll hear it, or
depends if they're in the woods or not.
That's true. That's true. If you yell in the woods and no one's listening,
they're in the woods and I'm there, then I will hear it. No, I really don't use social media. Purposeful choice there. Email's just the easiest way to get me, Ernie.
There you go.
melissa.dark@darkenterprisesinc.com. Inc, INC, not like
INC.
Not like INC.
Yeah. Not like in a pen.
Yeah.
Well, that brings us to the end of our program, and thank you so much for joining us. First and foremost, I have to thank my co-host, Jack Clabby. I'd also like to say thank you to our guest, Dr. Melissa Dark, who took us on a field trip through the history of cybersecurity education and around the world, and made us have a new appreciation for what deviled eggs can do to bring a little joy into the hearts of others. So that said, remember to rate, review, and subscribe to the No Password Required podcast. You can find us on social media at No Password Pod, and send your questions or comments to info@nopasswordpodcast.com. And if you'd like some show swag, just ask and we'll hook you up. I'm Ernie Ferraresso. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk again soon.
Thank you for listening to the No Password Required podcast. The show is produced by Cyber Florida. A special thanks goes out to our friends at Carlton Fields and Second Watch. If you would like to learn more about the show, visit our website at cyberflorida.org/pod. And if you still need more show content, check out our social media at No Password Pod.